Welcome, everybody, to our Friday daily market update. Um, I am, as normal now, recording this. Whoops, boy, I clicked through those fast. Sorry about that. I am recording this late on the night of the 11th for the market open for Friday the 12th. So this is going to be a relatively short presentation and the main, sorry, I've got a black screen on there. I'll fix that. I'm getting the correct screen on there for you. Um, the reason it's going to be a relatively short presentation is because, quite honestly, by the time the day finished today, the stocks were little changed. The Dow ended up being up about 15 points, the S&P down 3, the Nasdaq about as flat can possibly be, up less than one half of 1 point, not even enough to register a tenth of a percent or 0.2%, or even 4 tenths the way the Dow did. So very, very flat day in the market. The only thing that surprised me with the market movement on Thursday, quite honestly, was what I considered a major overreaction to the breaking news on CPI data. So you remember from yesterday's presentation, I talked a lot about what the consensus estimate was, the fact that this is the first time in a while that there was an expectation that things would move up. It was going to go from, whoops, I'm doing that wrong, 0.1% to 0.2% was the expectation. And then from 3.1, again, 3.1 to 3.2 as the expectation for, and again, this was like the analyst consensus estimate right here in the middle. And look, the analysts are right. Sometimes they're wrong most of the time. But if you remember from yesterday's presentation, my expectation was it would have to be a lot worse than the 0.2% expectation, or the 3.2, to really throw the markets into a downward funk. The actual number came in at zero point 0.3 instead of zero point 0.2. And I thought initially, when the market opened on the morning of the 11th, that it was an overreaction. If we go to this intraday chart of the Dow, we look at this chart and look at a single day, and we are looking at the day of the 11th. The stocks opened up and just immediately sold off. I believe at one point in time, I believe the Dow Jones Industrial Average was down over 250 points. And then around 11:30 Eastern time, 12 o'clock Eastern time, it just started climbing and making its way back up and up and up and up and up and up. Went positive briefly, back negative. Ended the day a tiny bit to the positive. So when all was said and done, at the end of the day, it was a kind of an eventless day. This finishing kind of flat did not surprise me in any way. The sell-off in the morning is what surprised me, and it was a pretty ugly sell-off for a while. And I think it was a pretty serious overreaction to what everyone knew was going to be a higher CPI number. Um, and it didn't miss by very much. The expectation was a little bit higher. It was a little bit higher, just a tiny bit higher than what the consensus estimate was. So that's what surprised me about today's movement. Otherwise, not a lot to report on. Tomorrow we get the PPI data, and I think it's gonna paint very much the same picture. I think there is an expectation that it was flat last month. It's going to be up 0.2% this month. Year over year was zero point 0.9. They're expecting it to jump up to 1.3. And I have a feeling when the market opens on Friday morning, and you may be listening to this around the time the market opens, I have a feeling it's going to be kind of the same story, that the actual numbers, I think, are likely to come in just a little bit hotter than what the expectation is. I think where they're expecting flat to go up to 0.2%, I think you're going to see 0.3 or maybe 0.4. I think where they're expecting the zero point 0.9 year over year to go up to 1.3, honestly, I think you're going to see 1.4, maybe 1.5 as the actual number. And I hope people kind of learn their lesson from today and realize that if it's a little bit worse than what was expected, it doesn't cause a major sell off. I'm not sure that a second day in a row the markets would survive an early morning sell off and actually rebound and end the day flat or positive. I think if this PPI data comes in a little bit worse than expected, kind of like the CPI did Thursday morning, I think the markets may sell off and not recover on the day. And I think you could see this week finish you're relatively flat, if not maybe a tiny bit to the upside. It's been a good week so far because 2 of the 4 days, the upward movement has been much greater than the little bit of downward movement on the other 2 days. But don't be shocked if there's a tumble and tomorrow things finish, down around here, making it a pretty flat week overall. I'm not going to be shocked if that happens on Friday. As you may remember from yesterday's presentation, we went ahead and made the adjustment to Micron. My adjustment, I was on the road driving to San Francisco with my daughter before the market opened. So I don't know what time it filled, but my trade filled relatively quickly because by the time I had a chance to look at it, it was about an hour after the market opened and I had filled. So I now have these 119 expiration options, 82, 85. Micron spent a good portion of the day trading to the downside. And kind of like the rest of the market, by the time the day ended, Micron was trading up a little bit. Um, I'm quite honestly taking the first look at it. I guess it finished basically unchanged. It came back a little bit, and at one time in pre-market, it was up a little bit, or excuse me, aftermarket, it was up a little bit. So Micron opened up down, took off to the downside, but by the close of the day, trading up around 83.39. That's more towards the territory that we needed. The 25 cents that I paid per share to roll my call side of my trade out, I got more than that much back with the upward movement today, even though it was not a lot of upward movement. And remember, we only need this to go up to about 84.50. I mean, it's barely more than $1 away from where it needs to be for us to have a break even. So I'm not going to roll the puts. I don't feel confident that tomorrow, if we rolled our short put up to an 82 strike, that Micron couldn't go below that. It was below it several times today. It was below it the day before a little bit. I just think it's a little bit more risk than we want to take on, even though it might bring us another 25 or 30 cents. I think we'll let the puts expire on Friday, and I think we'll get back everything we need to in the calls to be at the very minimum break even, if not a little bit profitable on the trade. So we're looking good on Micron. We've got JP Morgan reporting on the morning of the 12th. So by the end of the day of the 12th, we're going to see what's happening with JP Morgan, and we've got time, and it doesn't have to have a gigantic move right out of the gate. JP Morgan down a little bit in after hours trading on Thursday night, but like a lot of other companies, sold off early in the morning. By the end of the day, it had made a fair rebound. Still a little bit to the downside, but a fair rebound. We'll see what they report on Friday morning. Like I said, most of you are probably listening to this on Friday morning because I'm recording. It's already after midnight on the East Coast as I'm recording this. Um, so that's where we find ourselves. We'll see what happens with J.P. Morgan tomorrow. We also have Bank of America reporting tomorrow as far as our caller trades go. We'll see what happens with Bank of America, and then we'll have a lot more to talk about the early part of next week. So, oh, and you probably all know this. I probably don't need to remind you of this, but Monday is Martin Luther King Day in the United States. And so the U.S. stock market will be closed. So I'm not going to try and record anything or put anything out on Monday morning. And then we won't be live on Tuesday morning. Instead, we will be live on Wednesday morning of next week. And we'll get the Signal newsletter out on Tuesday instead of Monday because of the holiday. So everybody enjoy your Friday, enjoy a long holiday weekend, and we'll have another recording up on the site for Tuesday morning. Thanks.